So, if you clicked on this video, you likely want to learn how to fight. You've probably been looking around because you have no clue how to start. And first of all, I'd like to applaud you for even having the balls to come up with this amazing idea. I am super happy and also genuinely proud that you're starting your journey in martial arts. And I promise you that it'll be one of the best decisions you will ever make. Because being honest, not everybody has the balls to step into a sport where you're gonna get hit pretty often. Taking this step shows to me, you, and others that you have the character to pursue this. So without further ado, as a token of my gratitude, I'd like to give you this free guide on how to start your journey to learn martial arts. Let's go. So before we start the video, I want to make two things very clear. Number one, this video is a guide. It's not a video that's entertainment. It's not a video that you can just watch and skip on to the next. This is a guide. I want you to learn and act on this, which leads to point number two. This guide is that so you can start learning martial arts in 2 weeks' time. So after you watch this video, I want you to set a timer. I want you to set a date on your calendar, whatever the fuck you have to do. In 2 weeks' time, I want you on the start of your journey towards learning martial arts. Deal? Okay, let's get along. So I'm gonna divide this video into 5 steps to starting your martial arts journey. And step 1 is understanding your motive. I want you to understand why you want to learn how to fight. Is it to get in shape? Is it because when you were little, you thought boxing was cool, so now you want to take it on? Is it because you got bullied and you don't want to feel helpless? I want you to find this motive because that is the sole thing that's going to keep you disciplined and keep you motivated, especially during the hard times. Because when you start, it's probably the hardest time to keep going because you're probably worse than everyone. You're constantly getting beaten and it takes a big, let's say, hit on your ego. So I want you to write down your motive. No, like actually write it down. I want you to fully understand why you're doing this, just so you can remember later on when maybe you feel like this isn't for you or like you should take a break or even quit. This will also help you identify the end goal of this journey, the last point on the map. Do you want to be a professional or do you just want to do this for hobby? Maybe you want to become a human weapon like John Wick or James Bond. That's up to you, but you need to know what your goal is with this. Always stay hydrated. Now, my personal goal is to become the best fighter that I can become and participate in a few professional fights. Why? Well, when I was younger, I would tend to feel helpless because I started getting bullied. And I wasn't really used to that. And I was also pretty scrawny. I was a skinny kid. And I always felt like a bit of a bitch. I would always be scared of kids that were bigger than me or more confident than me or more aggressive than me because I thought that if I ever said anything wrong that, I'd get my ass beat. And this subconsciously just programmed my mind to, be a bit more submissive, not really voice myself as much, and even go as far to have social anxiety. So when I started this, I just knew right away that I wanted to tell everyone about it and get as many people as possible in this sport. And as for doing professional fights, I don't plan on making a ton of money with it. That's not why I'm in it. I'm not in it for the money. It's more so to prove to myself how far I've come and how far I can go. And I personally started this journey about a year ago now, and it's been one of the best years of my life. It's a never-ending process of learning, which is what I love about it so much. Okay, enough of me yapping about my story. Step number 2, pick a martial art. Now, this is going to be one of the most important steps, and there are a ton of martial arts. But for the sake of this video, we're going to stick to these 6. You have boxing, kickboxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, and MMA. There's many more like judo, there's aikido, there's sambo, there's anything under the sun, and they're all different variations of combat. But it is very important that you pick a martial art that you're going to love. Remember in the first step, we were talking about your goals. This will also depend a lot on that. So for example, if you are very scared of brain injury, which by the way is super, super rare, like unless you're completely stupid and do a lot of hard sparring, which we'll get into later, you're not going to get a brain injury. But if you're really paranoid about that or don't want to get a black eye or whatever, then you can do jiu-jitsu. You know, just depends on your goal. But let's start off with boxing. So this is probably the most popular one, and for good reason. It's, to me, the most beautiful, technically. It's super fun to watch. And if you've ever seen it, it's fucking fast. Although it only has one element of striking, which is your hands, there is so much intricate technique in it that makes it so fun. Plus, for self-defense and street fights, it's probably the best because you don't really want to go to the ground. You don't really want to kick in a street fight in case you lose balance. If you have really good boxing or if you have a decent level of boxing, you're safe against, I'd say, 90% of the population. It's a great base to have. It'll get you in shape and it'll teach you how to strike efficiently. So this is by far one of the best ways to get into martial arts. I completely recommend it to anybody. Every single shape and size of person has their advantage and disadvantage in combat sports. So never think that, oh, I'm too fat for boxing. Like, no. Plus, you'll shred out quick. So you can start off with boxing. If you want to be a bit more complicated, you can go into kickboxing. This is what I'm mainly focused on right now. It's great to add tools to the arsenal. You add a whole new length of tool, which is your kicks, which can be extremely dangerous. Like, not dangerous towards you, but if you learn to use them well, it's fucking scary. Think of your kicks as bats. Your legs are some of the most potent muscles in your body, and your shins are some of the strongest bones in your body. So if you learn to combine those with explosive technique and good hands, you're going to be a fucking hell of a fighter. And one single kick can stop a fight. You don't need to get in close range. One single leg kick in a street fight will stop it completely. So if you like the idea of keeping more distance, if you like the idea of adding a second weapon to your arsenal, kickboxing is a great way to go. Third, we have wrestling, the Dagestani's favorite. Now, it's so popular now because you see it a lot in the UFC. And this is an amazing base by itself, or if you want to go into MMA, I'll explain both. By itself, it's an amazing base because as soon as someone gets close to you, it's over for them. Wrestling is all about taking someone to the ground, slamming them, all that shit. It involves bodily control, it involves flexibility, it involves mobility. If you search up, I'll put a picture on the screen for you. If you see the physique of a wrestler, you'll think they're bodybuilders. They look fucking insane. And apart from that, not only do they look insane, but they move insane. They have insane cardio. They're basically human weapons. So if you like the idea of being like a bear, getting super jacked and throwing people around like a rag doll, wrestling's for you. Now for MMA, it's such a great base because if you know how to wrestle, you can bring the fight wherever you want. You can control the cage, you can control the floor, and you can bring the fight to the ground whenever you want. And as soon as you're on the ground, well, life just gets easier. When you put someone to the ground and you're on top of them, there's not much that they can do, and you can do a lot. Now in a street fight, again, it's super good. Like imagine somebody picking you up and slamming you against concrete. There's not much you can do about that. The only problem I have with wrestling in a street fight is that if there's any weapons involved, you're kind of fucked. Because since you're so close range, you risk being stabbed or something like that. Or even you can hit your head against the concrete. But I guess that's the risk you take with any street fight, which the best way to win a street fight is not get into it. So don't be discouraged by this. Wrestling is an amazing sport, and it'll build your mental fortitude to levels that you've never known. So, nothing bad to say about wrestling. Amazing. Next off, we have the second grappling art on the list, which is jiu-jitsu. Now, the difference between wrestling and jiu-jitsu is one main thing. Wrestling is more about picking people up and throwing them and pinning them on their back, so stopping them from moving. Jiu-jitsu is more about locks and more about submitting people. So you have things like arm bars, kimuras, arm triangles, leg triangles, a bunch of cool shit that you didn't even know was possible. A bunch of ways to choke someone, you get into a lot of locks, how to break body parts, how to constrict someone. It's basically like you're a snake. Jiu-jitsu, to me, and I'm not big on grappling yet, it's super fun. The element of technicality that it has, there's so many submissions, there's so many positions, so many concepts. If you're into very technical chess strategy sports, you're gonna love jiu-jitsu. And it's also extremely addictive, especially if you go through the gi route, which the gi is like the little kimono they put on. They have belts. So you're always going to want to get that higher belt and that higher belt. And honestly, it's a great grind. It always pays off. You also have no-gi, which I personally prefer more, which is with like a rash guard. It's almost like a tight shirt, which is to me more realistic. But I mean, you could also argue that the gi resembles a piece of clothing in a street fight. So either or is really good. And once again, if you pair that with lethal striking, it is dangerous. Really, the best thing if you have the time, energy, and discipline is to pick a striking art and a grappling art. Any of these two combinations, you'll be a really good fighter. You'll be well off. So, fifth on the list, we have Muay Thai. Now, there's been a sudden uproar that I've seen about Muay Thai, and it's gaining more popularity, and that's great. I love Muay Thai. I think it's a super cool art from what I've seen, and they're the toughest fucking guys you'll meet. I mean, if you go to Thailand and you see all these guys train, they're getting in actual fights, like no shin guards, no protection. There's 8-year-old kids fucking elbowing each other. I don't know how they do it, but they're crazy. But as I said, Muay Thai is known for building toughness and grit. It's all about inflicting as much pain on the other person as possible. Yes, there's technique. Yes, it's beautiful. But most of it is just let's see who can get more hurt and let's see who can take more pain. This martial art is purely for people who are very aggressive. They just want to cause as much pain as possible on the other opponent in the least amount of time. It also involves a very important part of fighting in general, especially street fights, which is clinching, which is when someone's very close to you. You don't take them down. It's not grabbing them like in wrestling, taking them down. It more so involves elbows and knees, which can be very effective when trying to get out of a situation. So again, recommend it to anybody who wants to start. And don't get, scared that it's super aggressive, because obviously you're not in Thailand, I think. So they're not going to, put you in fights in 1 year of starting, or maybe in a year, but in a month of starting. You're going to learn little by little, just like any other martial art, and you'll love it. Now, lastly, we have MMA, which is a martial art, but it's more so a combination of martial arts. Hence the name Mixed Martial Arts. So this is my personal favorite because, as I said, I think if you mix any striking and any grappling, you're going to become a better fighter, obviously, because those are the two main elements to fighting. So if you're a really good striker but not a good grappler, somebody can take you down and you've lost the fight. Vice versa. If you're a really good grappler but you can't take someone down and he keeps the fight standing, well, you're kind of fucked. So the best thing is to be an all-around good fighter. MMA does that. MMA combines a little bit of everything. A little bit of Muay Thai, a little bit of Jiu-Jitsu, a little bit of wrestling. And it makes you understand the whole fight game. So if you like all of them and you don't know which one to pick, just do MMA. I think it is the best way to start. So, knowing you might have some doubts in your mind. Like, what if I'm too fat or skinny? Well, every single body type has its advantages and disadvantages in combat sports. For example, generally, if you're bigger or fatter, you're going to punch harder. You're going to punch heavier because you have more weight behind your punch.
Cross, switch, and punch,
If you're skinnier, you're going to be faster. You're going to be more agile. If you're longer, you're going to have more reach. And if you're shorter, you're probably going to have more balance and more strength. There's a ton of fighters with all types of body types. That sounded weird. There's a ton of fighters, every shape and size. Okay, I don't know how to say it without it sounding gay, but you get the point. Daniel Cormier, a lot of people would call him fat. No one would think he's a good fighter. That guy would beat the living shit out of you. Then there's people like Sean O'Malley, who's extremely skinny. Again, nobody would really think he fights looking at him, but man, he's a fucking dog. Every body type, I don't care if you're obese, 300 pounds, every body type works. Because plus, I think martial arts, which nobody talks about and it's super underrated at this point, it's one of the best ways to lose weight. It's amazing cardio. You forget that you're doing cardio because it's so fun and you don't have to be on the fucking treadmill 20 minutes. And it just builds discipline. Like, it is by far the best way to get shredded or lose fat, lose weight, whatever you want to do. It'll help you. Another doubt that you may have is, will you get brain damage? Yes and no. And before you get scared and click off this video, let me explain. You've all seen, well, maybe some of you haven't, search up Sean Strickland sparring. And that's what you call hard sparring. Sparring is basically like a fight simulation where you sort of light fight with someone to, put the techniques in live rounds, etc. Now, that guy is a fighter who spars very hard. and he's probably going to get brain damage by the time he's 50. Now, listen, everybody, it's their life, their choice. But what do I recommend for you? Number one, if you don't have a coach or you don't have someone looking over you, someone that can correct your techniques, I wouldn't really spar. There's no real point, especially if you're a beginner. You're going to go harder than you should because you get nervous and you don't understand what fighting is. And you're going to build a bunch of bad habits. I'm talking from experience. The first 4 months or 5 months of me starting, I was just hitting a bag and sparring with no guidance. This caused me to develop a bunch of bad techniques. I got scared of getting hit because my friends and I would spar so hard without technique. Just a bunch of bad things can happen. So I'd say keep sparring to a minimum if you have no coach or guidance. And if you do spar very light, and remember to record your matches if you can, so you can learn from technique and you can see what you did wrong. Now, as for brain damage, it is very, very, very hard for you to get brain damage. It's not like you're going to get hit once. Even if you get knocked out, you're not going to get brain damage from getting knocked out once. It has to happen repeatedly. Now, you should never be getting knocked out when you're training. Ever. Maybe a freak accident, but that almost should never happen. If a sparring partner is going too hard, leave your ego at the door and tell them, listen, I don't want to spar. That's fine. You're completely right in saying that you don't want to spar. It's your choice what you want to do. And if you don't want to hurt yourself because a guy wants to have too much ego and act like he's bigger and stronger than you, that's fine. Let him be retarded. So there is no reason why you should be scared of getting brain damage. Unless you're a fucking psychopath that wants to spar hard all the time. But, that's up to you. Another excuse that people often put, oh, but I don't have money for the gym. Oh, Jorge, but it's so expensive. Oh yeah, it's expensive? What about the $40 a week you spend on McDonald's, fat ass? What about the Brazzers memberships you're paying? Huh? Okay, but all jokes aside, $40 a month or $50 a month, even $100 a month, I know it's expensive. And listen, if you really must, you can start at home. But it is one of the best investments you will ever make. Let me ask you this. If your health, your confidence, you getting more shredded, you making amazing lifelong friends, you learning how to fight and defend yourself, you learning how to defend others, you being happy, if all that was at a price tag of $50 to $100, wouldn't you pay it? I think you would. I think it's a win-win. So make that investment, start giving yourself excuses, get a job, save up, whatever you have to do, get in that fucking gym now. You won't regret it. And if you really don't have money, I understand. I've been there, but you have to understand that limits your options. I'm not going to lie to you and say that you can become an amazing fighter at your house. It just doesn't happen. You need professional guidance. But having said that, that doesn't mean that you can give yourself an excuse to not start. Because there's a ton of free resources on YouTube, like Tony Jeffries, Coach Anthony. For MMA, there's Tim Welch. For Jiu-Jitsu, there's Night Jiu-Jitsu. There's a bunch of free resources that you can use for complete beginners to start learning. So there's no excuses. But you do risk getting bad habits. I made this mistake. Well, I did go to the gym. I used to go to my home gym that had a little sort of boxing bag, and I was terrible. Plus, I tried to follow the tutorials, but I just got bad habits, like keeping my hands down, throwing too hard, and not putting my hands up, not twisting my punches. Just a bunch of bad habits that you can, save yourself 6 months of time if you just invest that money. Now we're getting to the fun stuff. Number 3, gear. Now, your gear is not only going to make you look cool and sexy and amazing while fighting, but it's going to keep you safe while doing it. So pay very close attention. Obviously, for every martial art, the gears are different, so I'm going to go through each one. The first thing for any martial art I would buy is a nice gym bag and water. Oh, I'm back. All right, I'm going to show you some of my stuff. So, gym bag. I have this Meister gym bag, if you can see it. It's pretty hefty. It's like a little duffel bag. Well, not little. It's pretty big. But it holds everything you need, and it was like $20-$30. So worth investment. Water. This is something I'm guilty of. I usually don't bring water. I usually drink from the water fountains. But it's just so much easier to bring your own little water bottle. One of these sports water bottles, or even just a gallon of water, like this one. Stay hydrated while you're training so you don't sweat. Well, stay hydrated while you're training so you don't get tired and have to cut the session early. Gym bag and water, necessities for any martial art you choose. Now, second thing that you need for, basically any martial art also, is mouth guard. Mine's kind of fucked up. I molded it the wrong way. Don't blame me. But it does the job. Now, I see a lot of beginners now sparring without a mouth guard. You have no idea how dangerous it is to do that. Because it is so easy to knock someone's tooth out by accident. Like, it's not even funny. I remember I was sparring with a coach without a mouth guard. He accidentally hit me with an uppercut. And my lower teeth crashed into my upper teeth and took out like a little chunk, like this big, out of my tooth. Not this chunk, this one. So yeah, that wasn't fun. So I learned my lesson. Mouth guards literally cost like $5 to $10, and it'll save you $3,000 of implanting new teeth. So yeah, I'd say it's pretty worth the fucking investment. When you get them, you put them in hot water. You can search a tutorial or something, but you're supposed to put them in hot water, then put them on your teeth and mold them, and then put them in ice. Super simple process. It'll take you like 10-15 minutes, and it'll save you a lot of money of tooth repairs. Yeah. Now let's get into boxing. So we said the mouth guard. Now we need gloves. So I have 2 pairs of gloves. These, ringside, and there we go. These, which my girl got me, Fairtex. Now, holy shit, they smell bad. That's another thing. If you guys are gonna start martial arts, your gloves are gonna smell like shit. Or maybe I'm just dirty, but I don't know, whatever. So these are more boxing. As you can see, they're longer. They are especially longer on the wrist. They have a lot of support and a lot of padding. Okay, we're gonna talk about padding. There is something called padding on gloves. That is this, what you have in between your fingers and your knuckles. So you want to have, for sparring, ideally you want to have 16 ounce. Why? Because if you get a regular glove, like 12 ounce gloves, there's going to be very little, not very little padding, but there's going to be less padding, which if you hit someone, it's going to make the punch harder. So it's going to hurt more. So let me give you an example. If I hit you with my bare fist, I would probably break your jaw. But if I put this glove on, there's 16 ounces of padding. So it's not going to hurt. It's not going to break your jaw. It's going to keep you and the other person safe. So for sparring, get as much padding as possible. 16. I wouldn't go more than that. But 16 ounces is perfect for sparring. If you have the money, if you want to make the investment and you want to get some gloves to hit the bag, or maybe the pads that have less padding so you're a bit faster and you get a bit more snap, I'd go 12 8-ounce, but never spar with those. Always spar with 16 ounce. For boxing, you ideally also want headgear. Now, I had headgear, but being a dumbass, I lost it. But headgear will prevent you from getting nicks and cuts that you really don't need. You know, if you're coming back home, you don't want your mom screaming at you, getting worried because you got, you know, like a black eye or a little nick here, it's bleeding. So it's just going to avoid all that. And there's also a lot of studies that show that it stops you from getting brain damage. There's some studies that show that it doesn't. Do your research on that, but it's better to have headgear than to not have it. Next thing you need for boxing, wraps. Now, wraps are like some little bandages that go across your hand. They're going to wrap your knuckles, they're going to wrap your palm, they're going to wrap your fingers. And this basically keeps your hands safe. It offers a little extra support, especially on the wrists and on the knuckles, a little extra padding, and nothing's going to twist, nothing's going to get jammed. It's basically just a little bit more protection for your hands. And also, it looks pretty cool. It's iconic. Like when you're shadow boxing, you have the wraps on. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Next, you have jump rope. You see all these boxers jump rope. Why? 2 things. Number 1, jump rope is good for coordination, which boxers need to. They're jumping all the time. They're staying in a rhythm, moving their head. And number 2, it's good for cardio. Jump rope in itself is amazing for cardio. If you add that with boxing, bro, amazing. Now, the next thing I personally recommend, which you might have not heard of, is glove dogs. I would show you mine, but I don't know if they're lost or I threw them away. But they're basically these little ball sack looking things that you put in each glove. And what it does is when you put them on when you put them in the glove at night or whatever, it takes away all the odor, it takes away all the humidity, all the sweat from the glove. So it keeps them fairly crisp and fairly not smelling like absolute shit. These are a game changer, especially if you leave your stuff in the bag for like your next training session. It's going to save your nostrils. So just please make that $10 investment and buy them. Because it's not fun sparring with a guy and him stopping mid-sparring, going like this, and saying, man, your gloves smell like shit. You know, it kind of hurts. But I wouldn't know anything about that, yeah. So kickboxing, basically the same thing. You want boxing gloves, you want mouth guard, you want your bag, you want everything I just said, and you want to add on shin guards. Now, what are shin guards? Toe reveal. You see this part? This is what you kick with. Now, it's a bone, so it's hard. But obviously, when you hit it against something, and you know, feel free to try it out if you're stupid, it's gonna hurt. Now, shin guards are basically like the gloves on your feet and on your legs. It's a little cushion that's going to protect your shins from getting too battered up. And it's also going to protect the other person from getting injured if you hit them with a kick. So, necessary, completely necessary for kickboxing, shin guards. I made this mistake when I started. I would spar without shin guards. Fuck, the pain was unbearable. I don't recommend that to anyone. Wrestling. Now, in where I live, normally wrestling is in schools. There's no real academies around here unless you're going to school. So your school will tell you what you need for wrestling, but usually you need a singlet, you need a headgear, which is to cover your ears from the famous cauliflower ears you've seen. You're going to need wrestling shoes, which are different from normal shoes because they don't tear up the mat and they have more grip. And they also have a lot of ankle support. They're a bit similar to basketball shoes. And of course, you're going to need a mouth guard. Jiu-jitsu, you're going to need a gi, which is the kimono I was talking about, your respective belt, probably a white belt if you're starting, or if you're choosing to do no gi, you need a rash guard. Put it up on the screen again, but it's a tight shirt. Why the tight shirt? Because you don't want to like get someone and accidentally wrap your fingers a tap and you break your fingers or you jam them. It sucks. So just wear a rash guard. Be respectful. And also a mouth guard, because you'd be surprised how many knees you take to the face in jiu-jitsu. Now for Muay Thai, again, gloves. Specifically, I would recommend, where are they? Thai gloves, the one I was talking about. These, as you can see, are a bit thicker. They protect elbows. They're a bit shorter. And if you see the brand Fairtex, this is a pretty popular Muay Thai brand. Now these Muay Thai gloves can tend to get expensive sometimes. So choose some with quality, but you don't need to go overboard. Also, extremely necessary for Muay Thai. Don't even show up to a Muay Thai class if you don't have the fucking Muay Thai shorts. You know those little shorts that are way too short? The shorts that, you know, your balls are basically hanging out? You fucking need those. That is the only way to get good at Muay Thai. You will never be a good fighter without them. Okay. Seriously, Muay Thai shorts are cool. They're comfortable. Staple of Muay Thai, so why not? Just get a pair. They're gonna look cool on you. That way you'll be able to flex your quads. And again, you're gonna need a mouth guard and a jump rope. Now for MMA, a little bit different. You're gonna need the mouth guard, as I said, and you're gonna need MMA sparring gloves. Boxing gloves, but less padding, way smaller, and this little part opens up for your fingers. Why? Because MMA is obviously grappling also. So it's almost like this, but you have little padding on top. And you have the fingers open so you can grab. These vary from 4 to 8 ounces, maybe even some 12 ounces. I'd say if you're just going to practice, just get 8 ounces or more. You don't want to hurt anyone. You don't want to cut anyone. Get 8 ounce or more MMA sparring gloves. You want your wraps, you want your shin guards, you want your jump rope. Pretty simple. Now the fourth step is mindset. So in case you haven't seen some fights already, let me update you. Fighting is very scary. You know, it's not fun all the time getting the shit beaten out of you and having a hand come at you at 100 miles per hour. Although it's super fun and I recommend this sport to everyone, even people who tend to be scared, you're going to feel some fear. But that is the whole reason why you need to start. To build that mental fortitude. So we're going to talk about some mentality tips now. Here are the 5 pillars of mentality that I want you to have. Number 1, I always want you to have the mentality of a student. Every single black belt, every single champion, whether that be boxing, UFC, whatever, has the mindset of a student. They're the top of their level, and even they are still trying to learn more and more each day. So why shouldn't you? Always be curious, always ask questions, learn, and pay attention. Martial arts are a very hard thing to learn, and it's very incremental. So you'll be training a lot and you'll see a little bit of progress, So you really have to grind to see that progress. Don't let your ego get in the way and think that you can't learn. Learn. Don't let your ego get in the way and think that you know everything, because you never do. It's a never-ending process. So always have the mindset of a student. Second, zero ego. Now, obviously, when I say this, I understand that martial arts in itself is a sport based off of ego. It's seeing who's the stronger fighter, who's the better fighter, and who's more of a man, who can beat the shit out of the other person. But there's a good type of ego and a bad type of ego. First of all, if you're going to go in the gym thinking you're hot shit, you better be ready to back it up. And chances are, if you're new, you can't. So, yeah, good luck. You're going to get your ass beat. Ego will not be tolerated in any gym, especially as a beginner. There's a difference between overinflated ego and self-confidence. I want you to have self-confidence, but not an overinflated ego. Be delusional about where you want to be, but be realistic of where you are and stay humble. Because at the end of the day, you're there to learn and enjoy the process, not to try and be Mr. Macho Man and take your anger out on other people and hurt them. So just leave your chip on that shoulder at the door. Trust me, it'll be better for you. Number 3, I want you to understand that you will lose. This personally has been the hardest thing for me to overcome since starting. I hate losing. I'm naturally just a really competitive person. So if you want to check out my first fight, when I did my first fight, I lost. I lost on points. Fair play to the other guy. He won righteously. I have the video a bit back in my YouTube channel. And I hated it. And I still do hate it to this day. But in fighting, you're going to lose. Whether that be in the gym, in the weight room, you're in a fight, you're just going to lose. It's part of the process. You name me one person that's a champion, that's a good fighter and hasn't lost. You might say, oh, Floyd Mayweather. But you're being a smartass. Because even though he has a 50-0 perfect record, he's lost many times in the gym when he was younger. He's lost amateur fights. He's lost Olympics, everything. You need to lose to win, because losing is where you learn. You don't really learn anything from winning. You just become more egotistical. You learn the most from your losses, and I've experienced this personally. So understand that you're going to lose, be prepared for it, and embrace it. And remember this, every single champion has lost more than you've ever tried. And that goes for anything in life. Any business mogul, any successful YouTuber, they've lost more and they've failed more than you have ever even tried. So don't ever be scared of losing. And by the way, if you fight, for example, and you lose how I did, and someone tries to come up to you saying, oh, you lost, you're a bad fighter. First of all, you have to understand that they're not a fighter. Because a true fighter respects that you have balls to even start fighting and enter the ring. And second of all, if they haven't fought once, who are they to critique on your fighting ability? Especially as a beginner. Like, there's a big difference between competing and training. And competing is a whole different sport. So you're going to have to learn. So yeah, learn to lose, learn to take it graciously, and get the most out of it. Because it's a blessing in disguise. Number 4, and one of the most important, respect. Respect in any martial arts gym, in any setting in life, is important. You know that golden rule, treat others how you want to be treated? Well, especially here, because if you don't, you're going to find out really quick what it means to be disrespectful. Always have good gym etiquette. There's nothing wrong in asking the gym owner if there's any rules. You can tell them, hey, listen, I'm new. I don't really know about martial arts. I know you guys have some certain codes. Can you tell me a bit about that? They will love you for that. They will appreciate it. Don't come in here thinking you're hot shit. Learn the rules, learn the codes they have, learn the little signs they have, everything. Always treat others well. Don't try to hurt them in sparring. Don't try to let your ego out on them. You want to learn, and so do they. You guys are both there to learn. Have fun and make it enjoyable for everyone. By the way, martial arts gyms are one of the most respectful environments you'll find. A lot of people think that you go into a martial arts gym and everybody's trying to, beat your ass. But especially as a beginner, they'll take you in like family, bro. Like, you'll be well taken care of there. And as long as you're respectful and you're kind, you're going to learn so much. And number 5, discipline. Not motivation, not you saw that 3 a.m. Conor McGregor edit and now you want to train. Discipline. Discipline is doing things when you don't want to do them. Whatever goal you have, I don't care if you don't want to go professional. I don't care if you don't want to lose weight. I don't care if you just want to get your cardio better. You have to have discipline. Because as I said, martial arts is extremely incremental. So you need to put in a lot of work to see a little bit of progress. If you go to the gym once a week and hit the bag, you're not going to be a good fighter. I'm just being honest with you. You might get some cardio in, you might look good on Instagram, but you're not going to be a good fighter. If you want to become a good fighter, you need to be dedicated to this sport and learn as much as possible. Always keep learning and training. Now, The fifth step, and by far the most important, and if you've gotten to the end of this video, I congratulate you because you're on your way to become a fucking human weapon. The fifth step is to start. It's very simple. It's the hardest step. It's a step that nobody wants to take. And if you take it, I promise you will be a winner. So click off this video and start right now. See you, bro. I know you'll do it.